this first book finishes when Ricardo, the character, gets out of the military. That's where it stops. And I'm going to finish Ricardo's story in the second book. And then the third book will be kind of like a prequel. That's going to be about my dad and his story of how it impacted Ricardo's life and how his experience has impacted Ricardo's life.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library. I'm intrigued to learn about your third culture person experience, like struggling to, after leaving Tehran and moving to the US. How did you prove your connection to your dad and being able to be here in the US? Did you, I don't know if that's too personal to talk about.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So US law is that if you're born from American parent, you're automatically a citizen in America. And actually, I was born on an American military hospital in Tehran at the time. So I was considered a natural born citizen from that perspective. And when me and my sister both were born, my dad actually filed all the paperwork with the U.S. Embassy. He never did it for my mother, but he did file all the paperwork with the U.S. Embassy. So we were already a citizen. So we had dual citizenship, basically. And then because Iran doesn't recognize dual citizenship, you have until age 18. At age 18, you have to pick one or the other. And you get to decide which citizenship you want to keep and which one you want to give up. Basically. But I never got there because I had to leave Iran and come to the U.S. way before that, and the government of Iran was looking for me, so I really didn't want to go do that. I had to get out of the country at the time.
Wow! So when you were mentioning that you were fighting with the rebels, you were younger than 18.
Yes, I was. I started when I was 13 years old with them.
Wow. I'm 13. I have a nephew who's 13. Like, how they train you for 3 weeks and
that was the military. That's a different thing.
That's later.
That's later in life. Yeah, that's later in life. But no, the rebels were anti-government. We were fighting against the Iranian government, and we were trying to overthrow the Islamic government of Iran. And once that happened, then we had to really... and then I got drafted into the Iranian military. They just picked me up off the street. I was 16. They picked me up off the street and threw me in a truck and say, "Here you go. You're going to the front."
Wow. I am aware that in some countries, males are required to do some sort of service.
Yes.
Right. All males. So I get that part of it. But tell me a bit about coming over to the US and then adjusting to life here. Outside of, your Detroit, was it Detroit? Your Detroit experience. Yes. Like, over the years, tell me more about your third culture person experience of just not fitting in. Like, what was that like for you?
It was, I consider myself usually a chameleon, and I can fit in pretty well, and I can adapt to my environment and wherever I'm at pretty well. But at the same time, certain things of understanding certain behaviors, certain things, it's, give you a good example. In Iran, you might see two guys walking down the street holding hands. And it's not a big deal. It's not because they're gay or anything like that. It's not sexual at all. It's because they're just really good friends and it's acceptable behavior. In the US, it's personal space. It's all about standing farther from somebody and all of that. So those types of things I had to learn really, really quick and understand how to behave and what behaviors are acceptable in the US and what behaviors are not acceptable in the US, and really understand the culture of the people, how people look at each other. And then being in a predominantly Black neighborhood, with my first entrance, and then in the Army, in the army was very different because it was really drilled into everybody that everybody wears green. There's no differences between black or white, and that was really drilled into it. But then there was those undertones that you would see in the behavior of the people that was very different. So for me, it was a learning experience from all aspects of it, be it a soldier with a Chinese background or a Black American or me or somebody. We all kind of became a melting pot of hodgepodge of things that kind of got thrown into each other, and we all had to kind of figure it out. I had this friend in the army, and he was from the back hills of Tennessee. That his first pair of shoes that he ever saw was the army boots that he got when he was recruited, and he's never seen a black person in his life before either, because he was from areas of Tennessee that black people don't go. So it was that experience in the military, I think, really was good for me because I learned from all walks of life from the United States, that from different levels, from different education levels, different cultures, different backgrounds, kind of all into a melting pot of things that we had to kind of get along with each other no matter where we came from. So I kind of learned that process in there.
That's it's interesting to hear you talk about. I was relating to something that you were just sharing about not learning the different ways of expressing oneself and holding hands, the holding hand part, because in Jamaica it's the same way. I went to high school in Jamaica and it was very normal for girls to be playing or walking in school holding hands. In fact, I was
Right,
very touchy, affectionate when I first came to the US, but that was normal. There was no concept in my mind that me touching a girl's hand meant that there was some sort of homosexuality attached to that.
right,
We were just we're affectionate with each other because we're great friends and we love each other. But I learned very quickly that it meant something else when I went off to college, and I had to
exactly.
learn to stop it.
Yes, yes, exactly.
So it can be, yeah, it can be quite shocking, the cultural norms that exist here in the West. So different, I tell you, so different.
Yeah,
Um,
and coming to Detroit in a predominantly black neighborhood, the people would call each other the N word, and it was okay if you were black, and if you were not black, you couldn't say it, and it was. I had to learn that the hard way as well, and I thought it's a term of endearment because I didn't speak very good English either, and I thought it was a term of endearment. I really had no idea what it meant, and I told that to somebody, and he looked at me and said, "Okay, I'll give you a pass right now because I know you don't understand what the hell you just said, but let me explain to you how this works." So I had to get an education in that process of what it meant and how it works. And then I realized there's some dynamics on the skin color between people, that there's some things can be said and can't be said. And that was the time of the rap music and all of that stuff was just coming out. And so I had to really adjust my thought processes of, okay, there's different subcultures here that you have to understand, and how they interact with each other is different.
oh, it's exhausting.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, the little nuances that you have to learn. It is so exhausting. Because I had to learn that too, because the N word was not something I grew up hearing.
Right.
And then the additional level of seeing people who look the same referring to each other with the same word, that for me I'm thinking it's offensive based on the rest of the population, but then I see you saying the same. It was so confusing for me. But boy, I mean, as a third culture person or immigrant to the US, even though you were an American, oh Lord, are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
I'm sorry, I just pressed a different tab. Even though you are an American citizen, but you're still new to the culture, so you had to learn so much for the first, well, for the second time, but more on an extended basis since you were here more permanently. um, yeah, it changes you, right?
Right.
It broadens your perspective, broadens your mind. But I think when you're going through it, I didn't realize that culture shock affected me to the level that it did. Because I was living in the Washington, D.C. area where there were so many different people. And then I just felt like I was constantly being barraged with learning a new culture all the time. I just never settled down into just one thing. It was
Right.
constant change.
Yes.
It was tiring for
Yeah, and being in that perspective, I think over time I developed my own culture of how I fit in with different groups of people and different things, because you don't belong to any of them, so you just have to figure out how to fit in with them when you're in their company and you're trying to work, you're trying to have fun, whatever. You just learn how to kind of become one of them.
It's true. It's true. I can start up a conversation with anybody. And I think sometimes people who look like me might think, oh, because we're native here, we're not so trusting
Right.
because there's been a history of other things that kind of complicate the relationship,
Right.
right? But for me, I don't really step off with that at the forefront of my mind. Like today, literally at work, I there was a Caucasian or European American, whatever term, white gentleman, and he was sitting with headphones in his ear. I didn't know him. I literally walked up and just started a conversation with him, and he was the nicest, friendliest. He taught me so much about a situation that was going on at work, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad that I just approached him." And before you know it, it was like four of us standing there having conversation about situations at work. But I'm just kind of happy that I don't have that type of how do you, is it fear or is it caution? I don't even know.
I
I mean,
think
I'm
it's caution.
cautious.
I think it's more caution, and people have a tendency of not wanting to be in uncomfortable situations, so they don't put themselves out there. That's the other piece, because they expect a certain behavior just based on somebody's looks, and that stereotype kind of goes across colors, across different identities, different cultures, and different things. Is that I don't know them, so I don't want to say something stupid, so I'm not going to go approach. That's one thing. Or this guy looks like that he's going to be really mean to me if I talk to him, so I'm not going to approach him and I'm just going to stay in my lane, type of a thing. But
Mhm.
being from a different culture and coming, and because everybody's outside of your culture, you kind of built that immunity that I'm going to go talk to him and just see what happens.
It's yeah, it's probably through experience, and I've had to probably because growing up on a small island with majority Black or majority Afro descendants, I didn't have that type of fear. But I think when you come into the U.S., because there's so many different people, I was constantly forced to
Right.
form a relationship with different people. So perhaps I've overcome and sometimes I do deal with like the fear of feeling that if I approach a certain person who looks a certain way, I might get a certain reception because it has happened. Don't get me
Right.
wrong, it has happened. But today was like an example of perhaps I've just trained my mind to just have a conversation with people, and it turned out to be beautiful. And so sometimes we just have to take that chance.
Yeah.
I know people have had experiences and terrible experiences, and I'm not negating that at all. So, but wow, this is interesting because I'm looking at you and I'm like, wow. But how do you fare when you are in people who just phenotypically look like you? Do you feel different or do you feel like you're blending in?
I feel like I'm blending in. And the interesting part is they don't have to look like me for me to feel like I'm part of them. So I have a lot of friends from different ethnicity backgrounds and things like that, Japanese, Chinese. Even I travel internationally a lot. So I go to Asia a lot. I go to Europe a lot. And I just kind of feel like I'm one of them. I just kind of fit in, and I don't see any difference between myself and them. So I was in South Korea last year, and I just go and eat their food and sit there and talk to them. And I always go look for not the touristy areas. I always look for the little small hole in the wall places that locals go to. And I go and sit down and have conversations with them. Sometimes they won't even understand what we're talking about, but we figure out an international language of sign language that we kind of communicate with each other. But nowadays, most people all over the world speak English, so it's much easier now. But even if they don't, I figure out a way to communicate with them.
Right, right. And you enjoy the beauty of different cultures. And so for me, when I go to a new country as well, I'm totally immersed in it. And I come away, oh my gosh, they have this here. There's this that they have that we also have. Or do you know that they have this thing in this country that I didn't even know? Like you explore and discover something new. So
Right,
it's
exactly.
beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, Shadows of Tehran by Nick Berg, guys, check it out. What an intriguing story. Give a perhaps there's some other. I would love to give you the floor now to tell people why they need to buy this book or why they need to pick it up. You've shared a lot about your personal journey, but why should they go out and buy Shadows of Tehran?
So, Shadows of Tehran, as I put it in the preface of the book and the dedication of the book, is a story about a lot of people's sacrifices. It's about resilience. It's about adapting to different environments and different cultures. And I always follow the what Churchill once said is when you're going through hell, keep going. You don't want to stay there. And that has been the mantra of my life. And the story is about hope. It's about that nothing bad will ever last forever. And if you keep going and keep driving, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you'll reach that light, no matter how bad things get. The story is not an easy read based on the reviews that everybody have gotten. It's not an easy read. There's some dark spaces inside in this book, and there's some things that people have told me that when they read the book, they actually cried in certain sections of it. But it's based on a true story, and it's based on the memories of people that have fought for good. And there is hope in this world, and we all will get there someday. But don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Beautiful, beautiful. You mentioned that this is your second book, I believe. What's the name of your
Well,
first book?
the first book is actually, I tell everybody, please don't read it. Don't look at it. It's a garbage. I wouldn't even read it either. So, and that's the other thing about these books is that if you don't fail, you're never going to get good at it. Show me somebody that has never failed, and I'll show you somebody that has never tried. And the story is this book. I have learned all of the not to dos from the other books, the other two books that I've written, and this one is much better than the other two books. This time I figured out what the writing process is going to be like, how to really write a story. This is the first novel. The other two books were more technical books, but this one is very different. There's a lot of emotion in this book. There's a lot of story in this book that talks about how humans can adapt to those most harshest environments and how you can still succeed even in those environments.
Amazing, and especially because of your personal journey of your dad and him leaving and finding him 30 something years ago. I'm sure. I wonder what that was like for you. Like what kept you going? Did you feel abandoned? I don't know, like
Of
what was
course,
that experience like?
of course, there was abandonment feelings all along and all of that. And it was always the question of why. Was it because of me that he left, or was it because of some other reason that he left? And you always, as a child, especially, you ask these questions of yourself. But as I learned over time that there is different types of things that happen in people's lives that it's really out of their control. And every parent is this their first time they're doing it. And they're not going to be perfect. If we expect our parents to be perfect, they're not. They're just like us. They're not perfect in any aspect of this. So it's really understanding more than anything else. And then realizing over time that they had to make some tough decisions in their lives too. And those tough decisions based on the circumstances that was pushed on them.
Yes, and you possibly a book about your dad coming up.
Yes, that's going to be the third book. So this first book finishes when Ricardo, the character, gets out of the military. That's where it stops. And I'm going to finish Ricardo's story in the second book. And then the third book will be kind of like a prequel. That's going to be about my dad and his story of how it impacted Ricardo's life and how his experience has impacted Ricardo's life.
Wow. It's quite intriguing. It makes me want to actually, now having heard your story, like I'm so intrigued by the story of your dad and his own human experience going through a journey like he did, having to play the roles that he did. You know what I mean? Like the love and having to leave and loving again and having to leave. Um, I can even conceive like what was his heart like or his mental capacity to do something like that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But this has been very intriguing, Mr. Berg. I am glad that we pressed through and got it done.
I appreciate it, Simone. Thank you. Really, really appreciate it.
And for all of our guests who may be watching either on YouTube, LinkedIn, or TikTok, thank you for joining. We're in session. I'm not able to see you, but thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for this very intriguing story. Join us next time for another story of the immigrant experience. Take care now.
Bye.
We thank our listeners around the world, and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.